Who was Gandhi? Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, popularly known as Mahatma Gandhi, was a prominent Indian lawyer, politician, and social activist who played a pivotal role in India's struggle for independence from British colonial rule. Born on October 2, 1869, in the small coastal town of Porbandar in Gujarat, India, Gandhi came from a modest family. His father, Karamchand Gandhi, was the chief minister, Dewan, of Porbandar, while his mother, Putlabai, was a deeply religious woman who greatly influenced Gandhi's upbringing. As a young man, Gandhi faced several challenges, including a timid nature and difficulties with academics. However, his determination and persistence eventually led him to England, where he studied law at University College London. After completing his studies, Gandhi moved to South Africa in 1893 to practice law. In South Africa, Gandhi experienced racial discrimination firsthand. These experiences sparked his political activism and shaped his philosophy of non-violent resistance, which became known as satyagraha. Satyagraha, meaning holding on to truth or truth force, is a method of non-violent protest that focuses on passive resistance and non-cooperation to achieve social and political change. Gandhi spent 21 years in South Africa, organizing and leading Indian communities in their struggle for civil rights. His time in South Africa not only honed his skills as a leader and organizer but also solidified his beliefs in non-violent resistance as the most effective means to fight injustice and oppression. In 1915, Gandhi returned to India, where he emerged as a national leader, spearheading the Indian National Congress's efforts to secure independence from British rule. He led numerous non-violent campaigns, such as the Non-Cooperation Movement, the Salt March, and the Quit India Movement, galvanizing millions of Indians to join the struggle for freedom. Gandhi's leadership and his philosophy of non-violent resistance inspired many, both in India and around the world. His ideas influenced the American civil rights movement led by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the anti-apartheid struggle in South Africa led by Nelson Mandela. His dedication to social justice, religious tolerance, and rural development has left an indelible mark on India and the world. However, despite his status as a global icon, Gandhi was a complex figure with controversial beliefs and practices, such as his views on women and his experiments with celibacy. He was also labeled a racist by some people. Today, we will discover the dark side of one of the most respected personalities in the world. Gandhi's belief in celibacy. Gandhi's belief in celibacy, or brahmacharya, was deeply rooted in his spiritual journey and quest for self-discipline. He saw celibacy as a means to conserve and redirect the energy typically spent on sexual desires towards spiritual and social development. According to Gandhi, the practice of celibacy would enable him to better serve humanity and commit wholeheartedly to India's struggle for independence. His interest in celibacy began in the early years of his marriage to Kasturba Gandhi. He realized that his sexual desires were a distraction from his higher purpose and made a conscious decision to control them. In 1906, at the age of 38, Gandhi took a formal vow of brahmacharya, pledging to abstain from sexual relations for the rest of his life. Gandhi's interpretation of celibacy went beyond mere abstinence from sex. It encompassed the cultivation of purity in thought, word, and deed. He believed that one should strive to eliminate lustful thoughts and fantasies, as they could weaken one's resolve and commitment to the practice of brahmacharya. To achieve this level of control over his mind, Gandhi engaged in various spiritual practices such as meditation, prayer, and fasting. Celibacy also played a significant role in Gandhi's views on marriage and family life. He saw the purpose of marriage as a partnership for spiritual growth rather than the fulfillment of physical desires. In his later years, he encouraged young people to adopt celibacy, even within marriage, arguing that it would allow them to focus on spiritual development and service to society. Did he really sleep with his grandniece? While Gandhi is primarily known for his leadership in India's struggle for independence and his commitment to non-violence, his private life, particularly his experiments with celibacy, has been the subject of much debate and controversy. Gandhi was open about his desire to test and strengthen his commitment to brahmacharya, or celibacy. In his quest for spiritual purity, he engaged in several unconventional practices and experiments that many considered to be morally ambiguous and potentially exploitative. One such practice was his habit of sleeping naked with young women, including his grandniece, Mana Gandhi, and Obbo Chatterjee, the teenage daughter of his personal physician. Gandhi claimed that these experiments were designed to test his self-control and resistance to sexual temptation. By sharing a bed with these women and resisting any physical contact or intimacy, he believed he could prove the strength of his commitment to celibacy and demonstrate the transformative power of Brahmacharya. These experiments were conducted under strict guidelines, with the young women involved being carefully chosen and closely supervised. Gandhi insisted that his intentions were purely spiritual and devoid of any sexual connotations. However, many critics, including some of his closest associates and family members, questioned the ethics and motivations behind these practices. Critics argue that Gandhi's experiments were a form of manipulation and control over the women involved and an abuse of his position of power. They contend that the young women, who were often vulnerable and dependent on Gandhi for guidance and support, may not have been in a position to refuse his requests or express their discomfort. Additionally, some critics point to the emotional toll these experiments took on Gandhi's family, particularly his wife, Kasturba, and his sons, who struggled to understand and accept their father's unconventional practices. It is important to note that Gandhi's views on sexuality and his experiments with celibacy have been the subject of extensive research and debate among historians and scholars. While some defend his intentions as genuine and spiritually motivated, others argue that they were a manifestation of his desire for control and self-discipline taken to an extreme. Gandhi's racist attitude. The dark side of Gandhi was not just limited to sexual desires. He has been accused of racism as well. While Mahatma Gandhi is celebrated for his role in India's struggle for independence and his philosophy of nonviolence, his early years in South Africa reveal a different side of the iconic leader. During this period, Gandhi made several racially charged remarks and held discriminatory views towards the native African population, which have led to ongoing debates about his legacy and character. When Gandhi arrived in South Africa in 1893 to practice law, he experienced racial discrimination firsthand. However, his initial fight against discrimination was focused primarily on the Indian community, rather than addressing racial injustice as a whole. At the time, he considered Indians to be superior to Africans and referred to the native African population using the derogatory term Kafirs. In his writings and petitions to the British colonial government, Gandhi expressed the belief that Indians should not be treated on par with Africans. He argued that the Indian community deserved better treatment and should be recognized as a separate racial group. As part of his campaign for Indian rights, he lobbied for separate facilities for Indians, including separate entrances and separate seating arrangements in public spaces. In the later years of his life, Gandhi's perspective on race relations shifted significantly. He began to embrace the idea of a common struggle against colonialism and racial oppression, transcending national and racial boundaries. This change in his worldview is evident in his support for the rights and dignity of all people, regardless of their race or ethnicity. While the transformation in Gandhi's views on race and his commitment to equality in his later years are commendable, it is essential to acknowledge and examine his earlier racist attitudes. Understanding this aspect of his life provides a more comprehensive and nuanced understanding of Gandhi as a historical figure, reminding us that even the most celebrated leaders can have imperfections and contradictions. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more fascinating and thought-provoking content. Until next time, stay curious and never forget the lessons of the past.